Greetings. This is the Father Church of Personal Redemption, or the Science of the Mind, Volume 3, Meta-Exposure Video. I am Patriarch, Reverend and Dr. Robert Allen LeVay Reynolds. Now joining me today is someone who might be with us in the future, and yet it is just me for now. So you will now be hearing of my talk on the meta, from the literal, which is the only real way that anything ever truly gets done. Now, let's speak about a few topics. The topics that will be covered today, and while this sounds like a lecture, I hope that it will be somewhat interesting to you, are instinct, the natural, some aspects of gay rights, the future, the past, the beyond, and smoking, possibly, and the economy. So let's begin. First of all, the natural. The natural is beautiful. The natural is what you see around you, where you go anywhere. It is with you. It is all around you wherever you go. And yet you see that I seem to be looking down now, but I am not. And there we are, you see. Just then, I was looking up. Now what that is an example of true telekinesis, because some have found a way to use my eyes to do so. And since some have found a way to use my eyes to do so, what that should suggest to you is that there's an example of the Patriot Act in progress in the world that some think of as being of the ability and power to do such things. And yet, is this natural or unnatural? Well, of course it's natural. It's the expression of culture defending itself. It is the animalistic nature of such things to come to a determination that society must defend itself. And so in that way, all remain as animalistic as they would need to. And so, to continue. Now, what you also need to understand is that in the world, there is the instinctual attraction, just as there is in the jungle and in the forest, between animals when they seek out their food and their lodging and their habitat or wherever it is they would go. And yet, where do they go for sexual gratification? Well, I would think to their own would be the closest natural way of doing so. And so they would do that. And yet in films that you see broadcast, the animal in question always seems to do that, and yet it is something shocking or fearsome, or it's presented in a rather fearsome way, as though, how could they do that, you know? How could they do that, and isn't that alarming, you know? But when that is presented in a less shocking way, as if to say, well, of course it would do that, you know. Of course it would. It would be understood that other animals in society, as all are animals, I think, would go and seek out whatever they would seek out through instinct. And so with same-sex attraction, I think what you're going to understand is that is a natural instinct, that is natural, and that it is the most reasonable between those it is reasonable to, because it is pure. It is in them to do that. They find companionship with each other. It is sought. It is well thought of. It is something which builds over time. It is something which has deep and emotional meaning. And all can find each other in that way that are in that way, speaking biologically, and not in these ways where the dialogue would become simplified, because I do so from a scholarly position. For I have graduated from college, and I have written over 100 texts, and I have done what I've done in film. I've made 2 documentaries, and so I do so from a more scholarly position, with this being the 3rd. Now, in terms of what guides the world in these ways of the meta, you must understand now that we live in an age where even the impotent can reproduce. Even the impotent can reproduce. I have made that possible. I and my wife have made that possible. My wife's name now will not be spoken, or perhaps it will. Elena is my wife's name, and I have just received the understanding that she desired that, and so I've said her name. But we have made it possible for the impotent to reproduce. And saying that, I am an impotent individual, and I with my wife have made it possible to reproduce, and I have reproduced with my wife, and I'm the first individual to have done so, and I've done so without any machinery or any equipment, and I love you, dear, and I wanted to say so in this video. So, now to continue, my son is named Robert Allen LaVey Reynolds II, and I hope that all individuals which are impotent will begin realizing that they can reproduce, and that they can, and that they will have families of their own. Now, I used this example one time, very recently, and I will do so again now. Now, you see how my hand is there? Now, you see how it is there? And yet you still see my hand there, a bit. That is called the intangible. You see it there? You see it there. And now I can move my hand in the hand, you see. And there's no harm to it. There and there. And yet, you see. Now, that is called the meta, right there. Because it is the unseen, it is the intangible. It is beautiful in that way because it is another aspect of the creation of the world. It is creation and life itself. And so what you have here is the world itself of understanding, of true understanding in creation. Because if you look at this cigarette butt, you will see that every aspect of this cigarette butt is of my own hand, you see. If you look closely at it. Now, would you like to move to your right? Would you like to move to your left? right. Rest now. Now, as I have said only moments ago, for those which didn't see that yet, you will. You will understand that to be so. You will be able to understand what that is. That is the meta. That is the ability of understanding. And what some know to be so will be known to others. Now, there is something of the existence to know, and that is that if the infinite can reproduce, how was it done? It was done in these ways of scientific understanding. Now look at my hand right now. I'm going to do something remarkable. Now, can you see what is in my hand? Can you see what is in my hand now? It is an infant. You see its leg there? Over one of my nails? You see that? I can do that. I am God to Renausians. Renausianism is a philosophy. Renausian is a faith. Where did it go, you ask? It went where all infants go that are Renausian for now. And I will meet up with it in approximately 20 years' time, when I am in my 50s, and when it is approximately 20 years old. If everything occurs as so, I'll be at this house, most likely, and it will come to see me on the porch. And I might be sitting on the porch that day, and it will come and see me. I'll just be out there, say, "Greetings, Father." I'll say, "My son, and what is your name then?" "Well, I'm so-and-so, and so-and-so. You were making a video one day, and you wanted to show them of life and teach them of life, and you had me in the video, you know. And I was sitting there in the palm of your hand, and my son, well, oh, that's wonderful. Huh. You've come home then. Well, all right. A beautiful day, isn't it? Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And we would just talk that way. Because when you're older, and when you're in your 50s and your son or daughter is 20, there's no talk of money, you know. If you're Renausian, there's no talk of expense or debt. There's none of that. You're just very, very polite with each other, and then you go, you know. So, pharmaceuticals, yes. So, the Renausians have produced a pharmaceutical called Zexafor. Zexafor is for traveling couples who might be on the long road of high spirituality, and they might not see each other for days, perhaps years, and they want to understand each other's sexuality. They want to be there for each other, and they do. And so you make Zexaphor, and you do. And you can make it from tree moss and aged particles of leaves, possibly some honey for taste, And you dry it out and you have water with it, and everything is natural. No, you do not add blood, you do not add any of that. It is simply what is natural. And you put it in a capsule. And you let it dry overnight before you put it in a capsule. And I've included the instructions in my pamphlet on Renalsian medicine, which is about 40 pages and covers everything from a hand operation to a hydrocele operation to Zexaphor to something called Valk. Now, Valk is an especially important medication. Valk is something which I've written the instructions down for in Renalsian, and it is a pain reliever, but it is for the removal of bone and fragmentation and such things, such as when I fractured my wrist, which was actually my right wrist, I think. And they had to remove pieces of bone before they could put my wrist back together and fill it with putty. And what you need to understand is that when you do such things, you must remove bone with the appropriate anesthetic. And that is what Valk is. Now, Valk, as an anesthetic, is a pain reliever, which is not necessarily the same thing to some surgeons. Makes it possible to do that, and you can sit there and watch the process, and they can actually remove part of your bone, and it's really something. So you can sit there and watch them do that. And I've written down all the instructions, and it's in the pamphlet on Renalsian medicine. So we live in an exciting world now, and an exciting time, for I was not thought of as a doctor before I began my field research, before I knit the bodies of my young back together, with my hands, with my mind, I should say. And when I was training my wife to become matron, which is a kind of nurse, a field nurse, by simply doing what I was doing, which passed it along to them through my body. And that is my way of doing so. Because when I do this, all understand what to do, and when I do this, all get a signal, and when I do this, all know what to do. And when I do this, all know what to do. And this, and such things. And so, isn't that interesting? And so it's possible to do all of those things. And it is. And it's surely remarkable. Well, I hope you've enjoyed my little video on the Metta. And before I leave, I want to leave you with the most splendid occurrence today, thus far. Certainly for some, and for me, I am a gay individual, bisexual actually, and I have a husband, and my husband is named Michael, and we have a son between the two of us. Born in these ways without a female there. How is this done, you might ask? Because we know, we've been told that gay individuals cannot reproduce and have their own young. You must be crazed beyond all rites and rigors. You must be quite dull and senseless, or you must be writing some kind of book for young folks about penguins. I'm not. So what you need to understand is that it really is possible. And what I've done, for I did so on the radio, I have a radio show called Reynoldian Radio. And I've just begun it, And I sat there, and I charged up my husband so that he could. And I found that my husband had enough estrogen in him, and yet is quite dominant, which was surprising. And I had enough estrogen in me to correctly balance the testosterone levels with my DNA and with his DNA to produce offspring. And I thought that that was really something, and I really did. And so I sat down and I said, well, what can I do to determine if this can be done? So what I did is, without their knowledge, I put another couple in competition with us to make it interesting. And there was a gay couple in Vermont, and they really wanted to have a son, and they did want to. And I think that they did. I certainly think they did. And when they were beginning to plan to have their son, I called Michael. I said to my own self, I said, Michael, we have to do this. We just have to. And so Michael arrived, and I explained things to him. And we did just right there, energy-wise, we connected. Now, I want you to look at something. Look at this. Look at this. Now, see? I want you to follow those two paths of energy. Do you see those flames burning right there? Now, look. Did you see that equation complete? Did you see a fireball just emerge? That energy in the air. Now, if you saw a fireball, you might have seen something there. But I'm not sure. I'm not certain. But whatever you saw is the energy emerged. And it did. And it emerged into the air. And it is now part of what is in the air. And I wanted to demonstrate that to you, to let you know that such things are possible. For when the equation completes, there is a combustion. So when Michael and I put our energies together for the same purpose, a combustion occurred, and an infant emerged from me. I gave birth from my anus. And I did. I sat right there and I gave birth. And I can say so, and you know that I did because you can see it right there on my face. So, and now you know that that's possible. Congratulations to the gay community. Once again. And this will close the gap, I think, in the argument. So, and then, shortly thereafter, throughout all the land, other couples began doing so. And it was thought to be fine and reasonable by all. Yes, wouldn't that be nice? But it certainly is thought to be, I think, very fine, very wonderful for gay couples, for those in the gay community, and all of our supporters around the world. And it's really something, and it really is. And so I just wanted to say so right then. I did. I wanted to say so right then. When I could, some would say. So I wanted to end with that note. I thought that that was a very remarkable occurrence, and such things are in the world now. Remember the following words, for you might hear them one day, and if you do, I would be so pleased. Agri, apt, equation in reference to the science of the mind, meta, Reynoldian addicts, and I do believe that's all at this time. Good day. Patriarch, Reverend and Dr. Robert Allen LeVay Reynolds. Father Church of Personal Redemption.